What happens when the one person sworn to uphold the law in your city has to face the one person in a courtroom who can't be swayed by a badge? This is the story of a police chief's son, a man who thought the rules didn't apply to him. And the day he walked into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom expecting a get-out-of-jail-free card, only to learn a lesson that would shake his entire family to its core. But this isn't just about a simple assault. It's about who he assaulted, why he did it, and the single question Judge Caprio asked that sucked all the air out of the room and left everyone watching in stunned silence. Let us know where you're tuning in from, because what unfolds here is a masterclass in true, unbiased justice. It's a Tuesday morning, and there's a different kind of tension humming in the air of Providence Municipal Court. You can feel it. It's not the usual low-grade anxiety of people facing traffic tickets. This is heavier. The media is here, a couple of local news cameras set up at the back. The public gallery is packed, and right in the front row, in full uniform, sits Police Chief David Miller. His face is a stone mask, but you can see the storm in his eyes. He's here for his son, Mark Miller. 24 years old, with a smugness that seems baked into his features. Mark sits at the defendant's table. He's charged with assault, disorderly conduct, and public intoxication. But the charge that carries the real weight, the one that has everyone's attention, is the assault on a vulnerable adult. The incident happened 2 Saturdays ago outside a downtown pub. Mark, according to multiple witness statements, was drunk and belligerent. He was arguing with his girlfriend on the sidewalk, his voice a roar, his gestures wild and threatening. That's when Arthur Flynn intervened. Arthur is a 68-year-old man who lives in a veterans housing complex just a block away. A former Army medic who served 2 tours in Vietnam. Arthur has always been a man who steps up. He didn't confront Mark. He didn't try to be a hero. He simply walked over and asked calmly if the young woman was okay and if she needed help getting home. That was it. That was all it took. Mark Miller turned his rage on Arthur, shoving him hard in the chest. Arthur, caught off balance and with a bad knee from his old Army days, fell backward onto the concrete curb. The sound of his head hitting the pavement was, a witness said, sickening. Arthur was knocked unconscious. He was rushed to the hospital with a severe concussion, 3 broken ribs, and a long road to recovery. When other officers arrived on the scene, Mark's first words weren't, "Is he okay?" They were, "You can't arrest me. My father is Chief Miller." And for a moment, it worked. There was hesitation. The responding officers, young cops who looked up to the chief, were frozen. But a senior sergeant arrived, took one look at Arthur Flynn bleeding on the pavement, and cuffed Mark Miller without a second thought. He did his job, the right thing, even though it meant arresting the boss's son. Now, in the courtroom, Mark's lawyer is a slick, expensive-looking man named Mr. Crawford. He's already trying to frame this as a regrettable altercation between 2 citizens, a misunderstanding fueled by alcohol, and an unfortunate accident. He paints a picture of Mark as a good kid from a good family, a college graduate with a bright future, a young man who made a single, isolated mistake. He talks about Mark's community service, his clean record. Sealed juvenile records, of course, thanks to his father's influence. He's building a castle of excuses, brick by brick. Judge Caprio listens, his chin resting on his hand. He lets Mr. Crawford talk. He lets him build this entire narrative. And then he turns his gaze to Mark. "Mr. Miller," Judge Caprio says, his voice quiet, but cutting through the room like a laser. "Your attorney has spoken quite a bit about you. Why don't you tell me, in your own words, what happened that night?" Mark leans into the microphone as if he owns it. "Like my lawyer said, Your Honor, it was a misunderstanding. I'd had a few drinks. The old guy got in my face. I felt threatened. I put my hands up to defend myself, and he fell. It was an accident. I'm sorry he got hurt. The apology is hollow, a line read from a script. There's no remorse in his eyes, only a simmering impatience. Judge Caprio doesn't react to the apology. Instead, he picks up a single sheet of paper. I have the victim's impact statement here, Mr. Miller. Mr. Arthur Flynn was released from the hospital yesterday. He was supposed to be here today, but his doctors advised against it. He's at home, recovering from a traumatic brain injury. Would you like to know what he wrote? Mark just shrugs, a barely perceptible movement of his shoulders. Chief Miller, in the front row, closes his eyes for a long second. Judge Caprio begins to read, and his voice, usually so measured, softens with a profound respect. Your Honor, he reads, I'm not a man who holds grudges. I've seen enough anger in my life. What that young man did was wrong, but what I want more than punishment is for him to understand. I stepped in because I saw a young woman who was scared. I served my country to protect people from bullies, and it seems I'm still doing it. I just hope he learns that a real man protects people. He doesn't terrorize them. My body will heal. I just hope his character can too. The courtroom is dead quiet. Arthur Flynn's words, full of a dignity that Mark Miller could never comprehend, hang in the air. You can see people in the gallery wiping their eyes. The contrast is devastating. On one side, a war hero asking for a lesson in character. On the other, a privileged kid offering an empty, my bad. And then, Judge Caprio does what he does best. He looks directly at Mark, and he asks the question that changes everything. His voice is not loud. It's almost a whisper, but it carries to every corner of the room. Mr. Miller, he says, Arthur Flynn is a man who ran into gunfire to save his fellow soldiers. He spent his life in service to others. When you saw him lying there on the ground, hurt and bleeding because of you, what did you feel? The question lands like a physical blow. It's not a legal question. It's a human one. It bypasses the lawyers, the excuses, the legal strategy, and it goes straight for the soul. Mark Miller opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. He looks at his lawyer, who looks down at his legal pad. He looks at his father, whose stone mask has finally cracked, revealing a pained, almost pleading expression. The smugness on Mark's face finally melts away, replaced by something else. Confusion, then panic. He's been prepared to answer questions about the law, about blood alcohol levels, about witness credibility. But he was utterly unprepared for a question about what he felt. The silence stretches, becoming uncomfortable, heavy. Everyone is leaning forward, waiting. The camera zooms in on his face, capturing the moment the armor completely shatters. And in that silence, you realize Judge Caprio isn't just determining guilt or innocence anymore. He's conducting a moral reckoning. And part one ends right here on that cliffhanger, with Mark Miller utterly speechless, and the entire world waiting to hear if he has any humanity left in him at all. The silence in the courtroom stretched for a full 10 seconds. It was a heavy, living thing, pressing down on everyone. Mark Miller just stood there, his mouth slightly agape, his eyes darting from the judge to his father and back again. You could see the gears turning, grinding to a halt. He had no script for this, no polish to lie. Judge Caprio's question, what did you feel, had bypassed all his defenses and landed squarely in a place he never visited, his conscience. Finally, a sound came out of Mark's mouth, but it wasn't words. It was a strained, choked noise. He cleared his throat, his face flushing a deep, embarrassed red. I don't know, he stammered. It was the first completely honest thing he'd said all morning. I didn't think about it. I just wanted to get out of there. Judge Caprio didn't break his gaze. He didn't interrupt. He just let the pathetic, revealing answer hang in the air for everyone to absorb. I didn't think about it. In that moment, Mark Miller was no longer a defendant. He was a specimen of a profound moral failure, laid bare under the courtroom lights. And then Judge Caprio did the unexpected. He turned his head slowly, deliberately, until he was looking directly at Police Chief David Miller, sitting ramrod straight in the front row. The chief's uniform, a symbol of authority and order, now seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. "Chief Miller," the judge said, his tone not unkind, but unbearably direct. "Your son has just stated that when he saw a helpless, injured man on the ground, a man he put there, his primary feeling was a desire to leave. He felt no urgency to render aid. He expressed no concern for Mr. Flynn's well-being. As a father, what goes through your heart hearing that? And as the top law enforcement officer in this city, what does that tell you about the character of the man sitting at that table?" The entire room seemed to hold its breath. This was the moment, the collision of family and duty, of a father's love and a leader's responsibility. The cameras swiveled to capture the chief's face. The stone mask was gone, replaced by a raw, gut-wrenching struggle. He looked at his son, and for a fleeting second, you saw the desperate love of a parent. Then he looked at the judge, at the symbol of the law he had sworn to uphold. He stood up, his movements slow, as if he'd aged 20 years in 2 minutes. He walked to the small gate that separated the gallery from the well of the court, and the bailiff, after a tiny nod from Judge Caprio, let him through. He didn't stand next to his son. He stood a few feet away, facing the judge, his back partially to Mark. The symbolism was devastating. His voice, when he spoke, was rough with emotion, but clear. "Your Honor, Judge Caprio." He paused, gathering himself. "For 28 years, I have worn this badge. I have told my officers that our duty is to protect, to serve, and above all, to uphold the sanctity of every human life. We are supposed to be the ones who run toward the trouble, not away from it. We're supposed to be the ones who help people up when they've fallen." He stopped again, his jaw tight. He couldn't bring himself to look at Mark. Hearing my son say that, it tells me that I have failed, not just as a police chief, but as a father. I raised a boy who sees a wounded man and sees an inconvenience, a boy who believes his name is a shield against consequences, and for that, I am more sorry than I can possibly express. He finally turned to face Mark, and his eyes were glistening. "Mark, you didn't just assault a man. You assaulted the very idea of what it means to be a good man. You disgraced this uniform long before you put your hands on Arthur Flynn. And you will not hide behind my name today." He turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, I am recusing myself and my entire department from any further involvement in this case, due to the clear conflict of interest. I will also be submitting my resignation as Chief of Police to the Mayor, effective immediately. This city deserves a police force led by someone whose own house is in order. Mine is not." He took a deep, shuddering breath. "As for my son, I love him, but I am asking this court to sentence him as you would any other person who committed this violent, cowardly act. No leniency, no special treatment. He needs to understand the weight of his actions, and I clearly have not been able to teach him that." He walked back to his seat, the sound of his footsteps the only noise in the utterly silent room. The shock was palpable. No one expected that. Not the resignation, not the public repudiation of his own son. Mark looked like he'd been physically struck, his face a pale canvas of disbelief and horror. His safety net wasn't just gone, it had publicly disowned him. Judge Caprio watched the chief sit down, his expression one of deep, somber respect. He then turned his attention back to a now terrified Mark Miller. The court acknowledges Chief Miller's profound integrity in this moment. It is a testament to the man he is, and a devastating indictment of the man you have chosen to be. He shuffled the papers in front of him. "Mark Miller, you have been found guilty on all charges. The pre-sentencing report indicates a history of entitlement and aggression, shielded by your father's position. That ends today." He leaned forward, his voice firm and final. "For the assault on Arthur Flynn, a hero who deserved your respect and your aid, I sentence you to 5 years in state prison, with the possibility of parole after 3, contingent on your completion of a certified anger management and moral recognition therapy program." Mark flinched as if whipped. "Furthermore," Judge Caprio continued, "upon your release, you will be required to complete 500 hours of community service. But not just any service. You will report to the Veterans Home, where you will work directly with men like Arthur Flynn. You will push their wheelchairs. You will read to them. You will listen to their stories. You will, for the first time in your life, learn what true service and sacrifice look like." "And finally," the judge said, picking up Arthur Flynn's impact statement once more, "you will write a letter of apology to Mr. Flynn. Not a 1-paragraph note. A detailed, thoughtful letter that demonstrates you have actually reflected on his question, the one you couldn't answer today. This letter will be reviewed by the parole board. Your freedom will depend on your ability to prove you have developed a shred of the empathy you so glaringly lacked." He brought the gavel down. "This court is adjourned." The sound echoed like a thunderclap. As the bailiff led a shell-shocked Mark away in handcuffs, he looked back at his father, but the chief was already walking out a side door, his head bowed, his uniform stripped of its power. The story didn't end there. Chief Miller did resign. The city, while mourning the loss of a good chief, respected his decision. Mark Miller served his time. He was denied parole twice because his apology letters were deemed insincere and self-pitying. It wasn't until his 3rd year, after truly engaging with the veterans at the home, that something finally broke through. He wrote a letter that made Arthur Flynn, upon reading it, nod quietly and say, "Maybe there's hope for him yet." Mark was released. He never worked in law enforcement or politics. He became a carpenter, a trade where the only thing that mattered was the work of your own hands. He never regained a close relationship with his father, but there was a strained, quiet understanding between them. The lesson had been learned at a cost that was almost too high to bear. This is why we watch these courtrooms. It's not for the drama. It's for the moments of painful, transformative truth. Judge Caprio didn't just punish a crime. He exposed a broken soul and forced it to look in the mirror. He showed that justice isn't just about locking someone away. It's about demanding that they become better, that they learn, even if it's the hardest lesson of their life. If you believe in a justice system that holds everyone accountable, no matter who their father is, then hit that subscribe button. We bring you the real stories from courtrooms, where character is judged as fiercely as the crime. And let us know in the comments, did Chief Miller do the right thing by resigning, or was his duty to stay and reform the department from within? Because this story is a stark reminder that the legacy we leave isn't about the power we hold, but the integrity we show when that power is tested.